Washington Post Dana Milbank and editor-in-chief of National Journal's Hotline, Reid Wilson. Hello, guys. Glad to have you both here.
Hey, Alex.
So, Dana, I'll begin with you. Are there any plausible scenarios where they get everything done by January 1st?
Well, Alex, this is the season of miracles, so we can't say absolutely that they will not get anything done. There's not a whole lot of optimism in this town, particularly that now that the president has decamped to the fiscal beach out there in Hawaii and the members have gone home. The likeliest scenario is we've got to go over the cliff. Members can see the ravaging of the American economy as a result of the panic that would instill, and that may move them back to the table to a point where they feel like they can make the concessions that everybody knows have to be made, but it still could be done, you know, and perhaps we'll have a Christmas miracle.
Yeah. So, I asked this question then, Reid, with a big old if it gets done. What kind of deal might this be? Would it be something long term, or do you think it'd be something that just kind of kicks the can down the road, as we've seen in the past?
Yeah, I think we've passed the point at which a big deal can get done. You know, it's funny, they're not terribly far apart on where they stopped negotiating in the middle of last week. You know, it's a couple $100 billion in spending, it's a couple $100 billion in taxes, and in the grand scheme of things in Washington, that's not a terribly far distance apart. But things have broken down to the extent that I think we're much more likely to see a short-term deal than we are to see a long-term deal, even if it's just kicking the can, you know, a month down the road so that they can continue working towards this solution. Then again, coming up against one deadline, who's to say that they'll be able to find a long-term solution with another month to go? Yeah.
Hey, Reid, what's the deal with the stock markets? Why haven't they completely tanked yet? Because we only had it closing down the Dow 121 points on Friday.
Yeah, a 1% drop after the Plan B failed, which wasn't a big mover like we saw after, remember, when the TARP vote failed and the Dow dropped 777 points in a single day. What I think we're seeing here is a disconnect between Washington and New York. New York sees a deal on the table with one side has their requirements, the other side has their requirements. There's an obvious middle. They'll work to the middle and secure the deal. How can a deal possibly fall apart? That's not really the way politics works anymore. So I think there's a disconnect between the notion of an obvious deal that's there to be made and the political realities of two sides who are so firmly entrenched in their position that they don't necessarily have the incentive, the political incentive, not necessarily the economic incentive, to avoid going over the cliff.
Dana, your latest article has a fun title, John Boehner's Animal House. So what do you mean by that? Because I'm picturing all sorts of things that have nothing to do with, you know, just a cliff.
Well, yeah, it probably would apply on any issue, but it was this week the senators paused and brought in Daniel Day-Lewis and Steven Spielberg and screened Lincoln. So I suggested that they might, in the House, they might pick another Spielberg film and watch Jurassic Park, because it's clear that the animals have taken over the place there. His rank and file humiliated him, and it's not clear whether John Boehner's speakership survives. Certainly not clear, or whether the nation can avoid this fiscal calamity. Basically, we have a House that is ungovernable right now. It's not going to get any better when the margin is even smaller when the new Congress comes in.
Yeah. Switching gears here with both of you, Dana, the other big story, of course, in Washington, the debate over gun control following the Newtown, Connecticut tragedy. Here's part of what the NRA's Wayne LaPierre said on Friday.
Politicians pass laws for gun-free school zones. They issue press releases bragging about them. They post signs advertising them. And in doing so, they tell every insane killer in America that schools are the safest place to inflict maximum mayhem with minimum risk.
You know, he went on to say that Congress should act to place armed police officers in every school in this country. Dana, did anyone buy into this?
You know, Alex, I think the NRA just jumped the shark here. Yes, that's just what everybody in Washington wants to do now, is spend $10 billion turning our schools across this country into armed fortresses. I think what you're seeing here is even the conservatives are beginning to say they've gone too far. You saw Governor Christie in New Jersey criticizing this. Michael Steele on our network, the conservative commentator Amy Holmes actually used the word nutty to describe the NRA. And these are the people who you might expect to be supporting them. I think they've set back their cause and have probably strengthened the possibility of having an assault gun ban and other things like that.
Yeah, so my point to you then, or a question rather to you, Reid, the end result of all of this, do you think the Obama administration will be able to get some meaningful gun control legislation passed?
Well, let's talk about that press conference for a second. I was talking to a bunch of friends of mine who are senior Republican communicator types yesterday, and they thought that was just about one of the worst press conferences they've ever seen because it was just so incredibly off message and so sort of insensitive to the moment. Whether or not there's an actual deal, I mean, the Republican Party still controls the House. That makes getting anything introduced, much less actually through the House, I think unlikely. There was a time way back when there were 30 or 40 pro-gun control Republicans. I don't think those people exist anymore.
Okay, Reid Wilson, Danny Milbank. Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.